Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, this is Janet Guillen, Membership and Training Director for NHJ. I'm very happy to have you here today. And I'm briefly going to pass the floor to Laura, and thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much, Janet. Like she said, my name is Laura Taylor. I'm a manager of media relations here at the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank. And as such, I get to work with this great team that makes up Fred. And we're so excited to be spending some time with you today to be able to talk to you about this great product that we offer for free. So I'm gonna just in a second turn it over to my colleagues and introduce them. But before we get started too much, I just wanted to let you all know I'll be putting my information in the chat. Should you ever have a need to interview an economist, you want to learn more about the Fred platform, you want to see if you can get access to economic data, we're here to help. So we have a whole team dedicated to reaching out to journalists and ensuring that you all have access to the type of information that you need. And we're going to be walking through some various features of the Fred platform so that hopefully you can get ideas for how to write stories, supporting data for stories and things like that. So with that, I'm going to introduce my colleagues. Iveta Fortova is the manager over the Fred team. And her colleague Diego Mendez Carajo will be joining us too. And they'll be walking through some great features and talking about how you can best use Fred to help aid in reporting. So with that, I'm going to kind of disappear into the background. I'll come back on during the Q&A portion as you guys have questions, and I'll be making any notes of follow-up that we can send out to everyone afterwards. So thanks everyone for joining us.
All right. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm gonna share my screen. We have some slides that we put together to guide our remarks. So this is a generic presentation to meet Fred and the family of friends that is associated with Fred. That's our contact information for Iveta and myself. Before we get into any further, of course, anything that we say are strictly opinions and does not represent the official views of anybody in the Federal Reserve System. So do you want to come in and say something before we get into the content, Iveta?
Hello, welcome everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. We are ready to show you our product.
So for to do that, we figure out that you can pick your own path. We don't want to be prescriptive in how to, what topic to cover first or last. So we can make use of the chat, since this is a webinar setting or a panel setting where people are muted. So if people have access to the chat, you can type in, please, which door would you like us to open first? We can talk about search, not using simply natural language search, but also we can show you how data are organized in releases and how we sort data in categories. We can also talk about the units of the data, how changing the units that the data are released in originally can help you tell the story behind the numbers more easily. We can also talk about dashboards and how to save the graphs. I'm going to take a stop here and apologize to Iveta for having the 30th anniversary logo on these slides. Why? Why are they there? Why is it there? So Fred has been in business providing data as a trusted source of information for consumers of data for 30 years. It started as a website in 1991. So we just turned 30 very recently, but I need to replace that logo. So am I seeing some, the chat is disabled. I'm seeing through the Q&A. So, so we're getting on through the Q&A, a request to start with search and customize the displayed data. So door 1 and 2, I think, will be the first two that we open.
Yeah, so Diego, do you want me to show some of the participants what the search and customization of the data looks like on Fred?
Excellent idea. Thank you.
And if you can stop sharing, I can pick up the sharing. Thank you. So welcome everybody again. And are you able to see the website I'm sharing, the Fred website?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And so how does search work in Fred, or how we can find information in Fred? So Fred is a website that stores a lot of data in a time series form. We have actually over 800,000 time series in Fred. So sometimes it can seem a bit overwhelming, but we have a specific path that we are trying to help users come to the data that they're interested in. One of the most used path users choose is to do a natural language search. As Diego suggested, if someone, for example, is interested in finding data on inflation, they can put a search term into the window on the homepage, and they're directed into a search result page. Something to be aware of this page, it's everything on this page is structured in equal levels, meaning out of those 800,000 time series Fred has, the search engine was able to subset 27,000 series that in some way relate to inflation. So there is it's a combination of relevance to the search term. And 27,000 time series is still a lot. And you can see how much the series with the highest relevance are sorted at the top. But we also allow more additional filtering options on the left side of the search. So for example, if there is specific concept in the inflation, or there are different geography types to look for the measures of inflation. All this is available in our filtering filtering options. And here, for example, Fred data is aggregated from various places. You can see here how many sources Fred has that in some way distribute or we aggregate data related to inflation into Fred. And so just for a quick intro, I can maybe select consumer price index as something that we know is one of the measures by Bureau of Labor Statistics for the headline measures of CPI.
Ivera, let me derail you here, because the Fred team also spends a lot of time and energy into making the most frequently accessed data immediately obvious from the front page. So even though the natural language search box is very big and centered and everybody likes to Google things, in Fred, you don't have to search all the series. You can scroll down the front page and see most, headline indicators, most frequently seen series. So it might save you some of the brute force searching and navigating.
Yes, that is true. So let me go there and show you also that path. So as I mentioned, from the homepage of Fred, you can use the search box, but there are other ways how people can consume our data. So below the search, we have some trending terms that are popular by our active users on the website. The terms get updated about twice a day, and you can see what kind of data is trending among our users. So that's another way how people can access data from Fred. But also there are different browsing methods users can take to come to the Fred data. Because remember, Fred is about data, but we have still not seen any data yet, right? we are still talking about that we have a lot of data. So one of the ways we can come to Fred is also looking into categories. And categories are just a way for us to organize data time series in Fred into common themes. You can see that this is also a good place to see kind of the breadth of data that Fred contains. We have anything from money and banking, population, national accounts, and prices, all the way to even international data, regional data, and you can in here even see how much in depth we go with regional data, states, census regions, BA, BLS, Federal Reserve districts, Freddie Mac regions. We also actually have counties and selected data that comes from academic channels that are not necessarily provided by statistical agencies. So in here, I can see that, for example, in money and banking category, I can go to interest rates, and I can drill even further down and see what kind of interest rates are available in Fred. So let's look at something that I think is popular nowadays, and that may be the Treasury constant maturity rates. And you can see here we have selections of rates available for different frequencies and different maturity levels as well. So that's through categories. And another option, if I just go back into the homepage, are releases. So let me just quickly say how the data is organized in Fred. So when we say time series, we think of time series as the smallest, it's the actual data. But then our data belong to releases, and then releases belong to sources. So really in here on the releases, you're actually looking on the list of available data sets that are commonly updated and maintained together as series in these groups. And we have those lists available alphabetically, and we have quite a bit of them. Actually, we have over 300 releases available. So that's another way to come and consume data from Fred. If I just scroll down a little bit, perhaps I'm going to see my inflation data that's part of a consumer price index data set. And here it's published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And in this page, you actually are obtaining the entire data set available from the Consumer Price Index release or data or a program. It's published by Bureau of Labor Statistics, and all these data series are listed in here. Not only that, we also have a way to present the data in release tables. So for someone who wants to look at release tables, they can access certain data in a hierarchical structure. And here you can kind of see how the data is nesting out and what is represented in each group. So for example, food at homes, these are the indices that are accounted for baskets as a food at home.
And,
So
these are the categories that the BLS, the source of the data, create. So to be clear, Fred doesn't manipulate or transform or clean the data. You know, none of those verbs apply to what Fred, which is aggregator. So those are the categories that the BLS releases the data in. Those are the categories that you can see the data in Fred. So
that's true. And then last but not least, there's also sources. So for someone who perhaps knows that they are interested only in specific data coming from a specific organization or source, they can access our list of sources and navigate into the place that that is of interest. So let me just go and find US Bureau of Labor Statistics, kind of just showing you the relationship. So these are all the data sets we have from BLS. And you can again see there's quite a bit of them. And the CPI is one of them as well. And last but not least, what we also find useful is looking at the data on the FRED website, also from a release calendar, which is just a way to summarize what is currently being published in FRED on a specific day. And it lists all the available data set that are either scheduled to be updated or with the green check marks, they have already updated. So you can see that we have 43 different data sets that we are looking into getting most recent data on. And if I just choose, for example, weekly claims, again, I'm on that page where it gives me all the data coming from that data set, coming from that release for unemployment insurance weekly claims.
So we have a question in the chat. If I reply in the chat, can everybody, all attendees see this, or is only to the host and the panelists that I'm replying to?
You can change that versus two and then click on everyone, and then because right now it's to host and panelists right now. So you can just change it there.
Regrettably, I don't have that option. I cannot reply to everybody. So I have a question from Chris. I'll just read it aloud so we can address it. Chris is asking about locating census data by census tract or zip code. So it's a question that relates to the geographies of data. We don't have data organized by census tract or zip code, but we have data organized by different kinds of geographies, as local as counties in the US and as large as nation states. So maybe this is a good segue into showing the FRED maps.
Sure. So some of the we have a lot of data in FRED, but some data are very special in a sense that we provide the data also have siblings of the same kind of data, but they're just for a different region. So for example, if I go into gross domestic product, I can see here that I have many different options on how the gross domestic product is broken down. And one of them is by county, which, as Diego said, is our lowest unit in lowest regional unit in FRED. So I'm just going to pick the total real gross domestic product in LA. And this is actually the place where the data is represented, right? So you can see here on this page, you see the graph and automatically see the trend in that particular data plotted on the graph, which helps immediately understand what the data is doing over time, which is the whole purpose of having time series data in FRED. But as I said, some data are special in a sense that they have siblings to compare to as well. And in a sense, these regional siblings or regional siblings are available on a map. So for the series that have that option, you will see this view map button. And if I click that button, I am actually going to see data on the map. So you can see this is not a time series graph. This is a map plotting only one period. But in here, you can see provides comparison of the gross domestic product across various countries. Not only that, but you can, if you're interested in this type of data, you can go to the download button. And you can, using the CSV data download, you can actually download the entire metrics of all the data that we have available for county level GDP. So in this case, it's from 2001. I'm just not going to download that big of a file for the purposes here, but I can change the time range in here. And my Excel file will generate with the data. And I believe because I am only sharing my screen, so let me share also a file. I will be able to show you what the file looks like. A second. Here you go. So I downloaded from this map all data for counties for gross domestic product from 2019 to 2020, but there was more available. And you can see that we have the data sorted by alphabetically sorted with these codes that are series IDs. By the way, these codes are unique. For every series in Fred has a unique series ID code. So we have over 800,000 series code. And then we also have these region codes, which can be translated back into census mapping codes of counties. So let me go back on the website again. So here we are back on the map. And let's talk a little bit more about the graph that we still haven't had a chance to touch, unless Diego, you see something else that we should.
So I was thinking in terms of map geographies.
Mm-hmm.
So on Fred, if you do a search, for example, on population, so there are more than 107,000 series on population. So data on population comes from different places. So the census gives you a data point in how many people are by state, by county. The Bureau of Economic Analysis also produces some estimates of population levels. There's population levels by census region, by metropolitan statistical area, by Federal Reserve District. So those different kinds of geographies will generate different types of maps in Fred. So you can see the same concept slice in different regions and in different areas, depending on the source and the classification that they use. So that's what you've seen. Baribera is showing national level, metropolitan statistical area, states, Federal Reserve districts. So the same way that you ask, you must be aware of the units of data. You must also be aware of the geographies of the data and what kind of area is the data point representing.
Mm-hmm. True. So here's an example of a state map for population. And as far as units go, obviously this is in levels. So here are the units of this data. And this is also the units plotted on the map. If we would be interested to, like you can see on the map that with no surprise, California, Texas, some of the more states with higher population are going to show up in darker colors. But if we wanted to see some kind of a trend, you can also have an option to edit the data on the map and change units and frequency, or changing the brackets, the color groups and brackets to be more representative.
So let's do that. So the largest state in terms of population, if we hover over the map, is going to tell us something about, so it's California is 39 million, Texas is going to be, what is it? 29. So California is the largest state by population. So that's a question of levels. But we can also ask a question about growth rates with Fred. And we can see in the map which state had the fastest population growth from 2020 to 2021. And that's a matter of changing the units of the data. Now, you can present the change, just a difference in levels. That would be the second option. You can have a change from a year ago, but also in levels. Or you can calculate a percent change from the previous period, or a percent change from a year ago. Since we're working with annual data in this case, right? So this is 2021 annual data. Percent change and percent change from a year ago will give us the same, figure. But this is something to keep in mind when you work with monthly data. For example, we're talking about inflation and consumer price indexes. The inflation figure that is reported in the headlines is percent change from a year ago. It's not the percent change from the preceding period. So anyhow, so since we're talking about population, we want to see what the percent change from a year ago is that will scale the growth by the size of the population. Now we see that the state with the fastest growth rate is...
Maybe it's Texas, maybe it's not. Idaho?
So how can we sort this out? I mean, we can change the, we can find the answer to that question by modifying some of the parameters of the graph to help us tell the story here. So instead of having 5 categories, I will make 2 categories. And so the first one is between 2 and, so you want to go change the colors or change the intervals?
Let's change the intervals. And if we change the intervals in here of those 2 items, we have an option that the value ranges on this map are from negative 2.9. So we had some decline, some states that have declined, and to about 2.8, 2.9% growth. So I can do...
Why don't we do 3 categories so we can see which ones, in which states population is decreasing?
So do you want to do like
negative 0 or negative 0.1?
And for visualization, let me just make this a little more obvious. So let me just close this.
So now if we hover the map, the light yellow states will signal, that color will signal states where population has shrunk from one year to the next. Mm-hmm. Whereas the darker greens are colors, are states where population has increased from 2020 to 2021.
I was actually going also for additional one more option where users could also download the data into Excel. And in the Excel, if you sort it out, you could also see which states have the highest and lowest changes.
So we're about halfway through. Maybe we can take an opportunity to ask for some ideas or topics in the chat to see what folks might be interested in checking out next. Because I do want to leave about 15 minutes at the end for questions. So while people are kind of entering their ideas or questions about where they want to go to in Fred or what they want to look at in Fred next, why don't we check out the dashboards, Iveta, and we can kind of show how folks who maybe go to the same data series regularly or want to know when something's been updated can just kind of create their own dashboard and see how that data updates over time.
Okay. And maybe we can even start with this map. So dashboard is one of the functionality we have available in the user account. So user account is just an additional feature we have on the Fred website. It's completely free for someone to be able to get to user account. They have to register. So let me just sign out and show you what you will see. So they will just have to create a new account with a valid email and password. And they can also subscribe to selected newsletters if they're interested. But once they have a user account, they can sign up and they can access user account features in Fred.
So every single graph that Iveta has been building so far can be saved and it can be shared with anybody who has access to a browser. So the Fred account allows you to store the fruit of your labor and share it and display it in dashboards, which is what Laura mentioned earlier.
So here I'm going to show you some of the already made dashboards that have been created in the past. So here's a macroeconomics and COVID pandemic dashboard with some selected maps. And you can see it's a page with a customized content from Fred, whether those are maps or graphs. There's options to add additional notes, widgets to the page, and the content on this page can be in certain ways reorganized depending on what a user is interested to see. All these graphs or maps have the option to be updated automatically with as new data becomes available in Fred as well. And to do something like that, as I said, a user needs a user account. And what happens is besides the download and edit map feature, which we have showed you, there's an option to go to user account tools below any graphs or maps. And in here, I have an option to save my map. So in a map example, I can go and I can preserve this saved map into my account. And as I mentioned, I have an option to keep this map up to date with the latest data available in Fred, or I can also make this map frozen with the 2020-21 values. So I'm just going to make this map auto update. So now it's saved into my account. And I can go here and I can go into my account, which your account may not look same like mine because I already have some stuff created here. But I can go here into an account and I can create a new dashboard. I will give this dashboard a name. Create a dashboard. And then if I go to modified items, because I have so much stuff in here, I'm gonna hopefully see my new dashboard here. Here it is. Oh, just went away. Here it is. And right now, my new dashboard is completely blank. There is no data, no maps whatsoever. But I can use this add widget functionality. And from here, I can select various themes of data presentation or economic information to be presented on this page. So as I said, I save my map. And I just need to find it. It was this one. And I will add this map to my widget. And while this is being populated, here's my map. I can then also go into other types of widgets, and I can say, provide me with some graphs. I can go and I can search for FRED data. So maybe this was resident population by state, but we were interested also in population in Florida. And these are the options available. I'm going to choose resident population. As I said, as Diego said, that these are levels, and to kind of complement the map, we are going to stay on percent change from a year ago. And I'm going to add this widget to a dashboard. And here I also have a graph that's getting populated with the annual rates of resident population in Florida. If I would like to do this exercise also from a FRED website, I can go back to my FRED site. I can search, I already have search for population in Florida, or let's pick a different state, California. Here's my resident population in California. And I can edit this graph like I edited the map. My graph is in levels. Let's do percent change from a year ago. Okay, nice rates. Let me also make this graph more fun. I will make this graph into an area, and let's add some colors to it. And again, below the graph, I have an option to save the graph or directly add this graph to a dashboard.
So Ivera, does this graph say that population in California has been growing up until 2021? Percent change from a year ago. Oh,
yes. Yeah. Yep. So we have a negative growth.
For the first time since data were collected, and the data spans all the way back to 1901.
Mm-hmm.
That's a story for the FRED blog post.
Yes, that is definitely a story. So under account tools, I can add to dashboard. And I can here select from my list of dashboards, and here's a new dashboard that I just created. I will make this data update automatically. I added it to my dashboard. So if I go back to my new dashboard and I will refresh it, hopefully I have 3 pieces of content in here. So here's my map. Here's my graph of population that's going to be coming up. And here is the resident population in California that's drawing out as we speak. And to Diego's point, so we know, Diego says, okay, we have negative values. How about I add a data table which displays the population in California in rates. This last 20 observations. What does this do? It's going to give us a table of values. So now I have not only a graph to visualize the trend, but I also have the values that are available on that graph. And I think last but not least around these dashboards is that I created this dashboard under my account. But what I can do is I can release this dashboard to be publicly available. So what it does is it allows anybody with a link to this dashboard to have access to it. So I made this dashboard public, and here's my public link. And if I find, are you guys doing the QA, or are you guys in?
The chat works.
I may not be able to copy it, right?
Into the chat, you should be able to. Let's hope.
Here you go. Just copied it. So in this case, I'm releasing this public dashboard out to anybody who is interested. And if people have their own accounts, they can take this public dashboard, they can save it as their own copy, and they can modify the dashboard as well. So what other questions are there?
Well, what I would like to do here is mention one of my, I'm going to be selfish and mention one of my favorite features of Fred Maps, which is that they're highly customizable. And I'm going to drop in the chat a link to a New York Times opinion piece by Paul Krugman. He's a big fan of the Fred platform. So I'll drop in a piece there. You can see how easy it is to simply create a graph, download it into either an embed code or even into an image. You can share that with your editors or your online team so that they can actually include a chart directly from Fred into your written piece. So it's pretty easy to do, pretty easy to change colors if you have certain brand standards or things like that for your outlet. And just an easy way to have a quick visualization for your story. So with that, anyone who wants to come, off of mute and be able to just ask some questions would be great. If there are none, we certainly don't have to log off. We can continue to read through some or share some more interesting features of Fred, but we'll maybe pause here for a second and just listen and see if we've got any questions.
So let me say, Laura, a theme that is coming up after we're on minute 43 of our time together is we didn't want to presuppose anything about talking to the association, to an organization that is an umbrella organization for Hispanic journalists. But we're getting a lot of questions that have to do with ethnic classifications for data. So do you have data for this particular group of people in the population? So for those. For ethnic and racial classifications, we follow the releases produced by the census and the BLS. And recently, the holdings of data from the consumer expenditure survey from the BLS has a ton of demographic characteristics for consumers. So you can pull data about consumers according to their racial and ethnic grouping, educational attainment, income levels before and after taxes. So there's a massive wealth of information in there that will help paint a very complete and very rich picture of consumption patterns across racial and ethnic groups. So Iveta is just navigating that survey is organized in release tables. The numbers next to each of those names that you see there is the number of series in each of those releases. So It will be about consumer characteristics.
Yeah, the consumer survey provides data on expenditures, income, and demographic characteristics in the United States. So here's a little description around what the data set represents. Obviously, all these data listed below belong to this data set, but the order of this data may change over time because this data is sorted by popularity. So depending on what's most popular is going to elevate to the top. And then something that Diego mentions are these tables. So we have various ways of how the source of this data is dissecting the entire data set. So let me just do.
I mean, right there we have the Hispanic or Latino origin of reference person.
And it seems like it's nesting down into more layers of groups. Wow, those are some deep expenditures. Okay, let's do that. And here we are. So these are all the levels of different expenditure items with a reference group for Hispanic or Latinos. And this data is in dollars. And this is how deep the surveys go into measuring all different kinds of consumer expenditure products by consumers. Even an apparel, transportation, healthcare, pets. So there's a great variety of data. And what I can do here on this page is, let's say I want to compare multiple data on the graph. I can use these checkboxes. I can do in the meat section, let's stay with something meaty here, beef and pork, and let's do fish. And I can check those boxes and I can go here and I can add those data immediately to the graph. And I just constructed a multi-series graph with three lines on the graph. And I can go again here, either customize the graph by shortening the time period of this graph. I can also go here and change units, or I can also change the format of the data as well. So I'm kind of curious how the bar graphs will look on this. And maybe different colors. And as Laura pointed out, we can download this information from the graph, either the data itself or the image of the graph in various formats. We can also use this share link to reference the graph in a story. So for example, we can do under share links button below the graph, you have an option to do a short URL, which will take us to this page with the data. So again, there is an option for the graph to set the time period plotted on the graph. So if we want to have the graph only with the frozen periods, I'm going to choose the last option. And then if I would copy this, this link and I would paste it in the browser, it will take me into the exact same page with the customizations, with the exception of now the graph understands that it will not be updating with more, with latest data in FRED. Now I just have to find here. And besides the share link option, if there is an interest in embedding this entire interactive graph on the page, on the websites, we also have an embed code for this graph in a similar behavior, like we have the short links. So it provides an iframe code that can be added into HTML code for websites.
So I'll use this quick pause to make a plug for our YouTube channel. So the St. Louis Fed has a YouTube channel, and on that channel, there are several Fred videos, like user videos, tutorial videos, to kind of walk you through a lot of the things that we've chatted about today, and also just some other general content you might find of interest. I know some of the economic equity questions that came up in the chat. We have an Institute for Economic Equity that releases quite a bit of research and data, including the demographics of wealth. And so those are great resources for you. Like I said, our media relations team is here and ready to take any requests for interviews you might have with all of our subject matter experts and economists. Lots of great stuff. So Iveta, maybe it would be a good opportunity to go to the Fred help section, where there's a lot of really rich Q&As in there that can help folks learn more about the product, get some frequently asked questions answered, see some tutorials, things like that.
Hi there. But before you guys do that, I have a quick question. My name is Gabriel. I'm the data journalist at CNBC.com. First of all, thank you so much for everything that Fred does. Could not do my job without you. Secondly, I've used Fred a lot over the years, basically taught myself how to navigate it. Do you have a process or a place I can go to where I can see everything that you guys have in there? Because apart from the usual suspects of CPI, PAYMs, like some of the data sets that we use really regularly, there's so much in there. And even though I'm a frequent user, I have no idea of like all the stuff that you guys have in there. Do you have a method that you would advise for familiarizing myself with everything that is possible inside Fred?
Yes, the Fred team is hiring if you'd like to become a member. No, I'll let Iveta actually answer that question.
Yes, we like to think of Fred as a library with books, right? So potentially there are many books, and you may not know all the books that are there. And how can you know what interests you if you don't know what's there? So there are a couple options. I would say one of the options that I like to refer users to is go into categories and see kind of like the themes we have. I tend to believe that the amount of data we have outweighs the human brain's possibility to kind of remember everything at this point.
Yeah.
But categories are a good place to start. I would also suggest we have a Fred newsletter. So at the bottom of the page, you can subscribe to our newsletter, where we tend to send out any new data additions or changes to the data once a month to our subscribers, so that they're aware of what new data comes out. We also have ways to think about different data. For example, if we different content with respect to the series available. So if I, for example, go back to our inflation example, there are different ways below the graph how you can also think about the data. So here's our main headline, CPI. Below the graph, we also have a section with release tables. So perhaps there may be an interest in understanding if there are other types of data within this inflation measure that may be of interest. So look for release tables, and we also have a related content section, which kind of touching on where people can find interest in the products, in the data related to inflation. Fred blog, as Diego mentioned, is another place to look for. So Fred blog is also advertised in our newsletter, and it is a way to summarize selected data from Fred to our end users, and it's very brief. It's just a couple paragraphs, and then it's the end of the Fred blog explaining what it is. Yeah, and searching on Fred is also a good way to get there. We do not have like a consolidated catalog though of all the data we have in our product that will be readily available for sharing.
And then my follow-up question to that is, can I call either of you to share with you like a draft of a visualization that I'm working on so that I make sure that I'm not doing it incorrectly and making a complete idiot of myself?
So that's where I can come in and help out. Anything that you want to share with us, happy to hop on a call and go through it with you together, like on a Teams meeting or something like that, and just make sure you get the right stuff. Yeah.
This has been my dream for so long. Thank you.
Oh, Fred team making dreams come true for 31 years.
One series at a time.
Yes. And last but not least, if there is any other questions around functionality, so in this About Fred section, we have tutorials around the product, and they kind of summarize how that's our Fred help. And here we break up the functionality of Fred into various themes. So you can browse through to get a sense of what else is Fred capable of doing for you that perhaps you might have not known about. And obviously, last but not least, if you need to contact us, you can click this contact us page. But if it's something for public outreach, we do recommend going through Laura Taylor, who shared her contacts in the chat at the start of this webinar.
Well, we probably got time for one more question if there's anybody else out there.
If you happen to be in the St. Louis area, stop by. If several of you are in the St. Louis area, let us know, and maybe we can organize a face-to-face event where we can talk about these things extensively.
Absolutely. Although it's hard to compete with Las Vegas. That's where they just had their conference. So, so with that, I want to leave the last couple minutes for Janet. So if you want to come on and we'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending our meeting today. Diego, Yvette, and Laura, thank you for sharing all the info and resources today. It was amazing to be here with you all. I wanted to take a few seconds to invite our participants today to please complete a 5-second survey. Basically, all you have to do is take a picture of the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can click on the link that we have posted in the chat. It can take you quickly to the survey. Your feedback is very important to us. We appreciate you all very much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.